It's 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines, this is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. It's Monday, July 7.
7-7.
Yeah. 7-7. Naglasada ka, no?
Hindi pa nga.
Anyway, Julie Dondon Patidongan, alias Toto, is now under the PNP's protective custody. The self-proclaimed whistleblower and one of the suspects in the missing Sabongeros case is now being closely guarded by the police, according to PNP Chief Nicolas Torre III. Torre says Patidongan will be turned over to the Justice Department once he's accepted into the Witness Protection Program. Torre used to head the CIDG that also investigated the case of the disappeared Sabongeros. Meantime, the PNP chief also confirms there are now 15 police officers under restrictive custody for their alleged involvement in the case. Alias Totoy earlier tagged these cops or these policemen as executioners of the Sabongeros. Torres says the highest ranking officer in the group holds the rank of Lieutenant Colonel.
Justice Secretary Boying Remulla has revealed a list of 20 members of the so-called Alpha Group linked to this case of the missing Sabongeros. One Balita Pilipinas today that the names on the list are still under evaluation. Alias Totoy or Patidongan earlier claimed that the so-called Alpha Group is behind the disappearance of over 100 Sabongeros. He also alleged that businessman Atong Ang and actress Gretchen Barreto are members of this Alpha Group.
Hinahanda pa ang yung mga kasong dapat i-file at ina-evaluate pa namin lahat ng statements na hawak namin at lahat ng ebidensya. Kaya we have to wait for the process to unravel. Hindi naman to instant dahil lahat ito talaga dapat pag-aralan. At meron din kami hawak na rito statement na that serves as a guide para sa aming pagtingin sa kasong ito. Meron kami list of 20 names na ina-evaluate ngayon. Alam mo, everything is up to lahat yan kailangan evaluate na maayos. Pero we will seek it out kasi marami naman lumalapit na upang magpaliwanag. So aalamin natin. Ito yung Alpha Group na ating pinanonood ngayon, kung sino-sino ito at kung ano ang kanilang partisipasyon. Kasi kinakailangan yan lahat ma-validate natin.
Other news, Akbayan Representative Jose Manuel Chel Jokno and ML Party List Congresswoman Laila de Lima are joining the minority bloc. The House newbies are also backing the four-piece party list representative Marcelino Libanan and have signed a manifesto of support for his re-election as minority leader in the 20th Congress. Jokno and de Lima are central opposition figures in the House or are vowing to stand as fiscalizers. They're also expected to join the House prosecution team for the impeachment trial of VP Sara Duterte that begins on July 28. Earlier in the day, Jokno and de Lima joined the executive course on legislation for other neophyte legislators that included the son of Speaker Martin Romualdez, Tingog Party List Congressman Andrew Julian Romualdez, and Batangas Governor Vilma Santos' son, Ryan Recto.
First 3 years, the minority still giving some leeway sa administration para ba, yung maka-adjust sa governance. This last 3 years, the second half, we will be stricter in this. We will be more discerning and parang talagang yung maniningil part of yung mga plano ng gobyerno.
We want to really push for issues that we believe are very important for our people. And we believe that our place in the House is really in the minority. Unang-una, syempre, ipaglalaban natin yung lahat ng mga pangangailangan ng mga ordinaryong mamamayan.
And here's a quick rundown of other stories we're watching this Monday, July 7. Malacanang says it is open to imposing taxes on online gaming provided there is sufficient study on it. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says President Marcos supports measures addressing gambling issues, including a crackdown on unregistered online gaming platforms. While the President is listening to public concerns, it is still uncertain if online gaming will be included in this upcoming SONA.
PHIVOLCS is warning of increased seismic activity in Taal volcano. The agency says the sharp rise in real-time seismic energy measurements and the lack of gas release may signal blockage in the volcanic gas pathways, which could cause pressurization. This condition could then trigger a phreatic or minor phreatomagmatic eruption. And President Marcos has ordered the DPWH to fast-track San Juanico Bridges rehabilitation. He's allocated 500 million pesos for its restoration. The president also said that he wants the bridge's load limit restored to 12 to 15 metric tons by December 2025 to ease traffic and logistical delays.
And joining us today, wala pa si Tito Ronald. Hahabol si Tito Ronald, ang ating political heckler will be joining us in a while.
Naging heckler na talaga.
Heckler na talaga. But from the Philippine Star,
Editor-in-Chief, Amy Pamintuan. Hi, Amy.
oh, Ami, nakamute ka ata. Walang audio. Ami, gusto mag-lip-sync ka? Mag-hi ka ako, magkasalta. Hi, I'm Ami. Ulitin natin. Hi, I'm Ami. Can you hear me?
I guess, baka naka-mute lang.
Baka nakamute ka, Bok. Oo, it's from your end daw. The audio is not coming in from your end.
Anyways, while we're waiting for that, one name na hindi
Okay
mo
naman
na,
siya.
one name na hindi mo nadagdag in the House newbies list is si Congressman Javi Benitez, who is the son of Albi Benitez. Albi Benitez, of course. It's interesting because yung pictures on the newspapers right now are of the two of them, si Tingog Party List Representative Andrew Julian Romualdez and Congressman Javi Benitez walking side by side into the House of Representatives. And of course, this is the next generation congressman na. So, number one, my question is, I don't know if should we hope that the political dynasty bill could be passed in the 20th Congress, and then pero secondly, but yes, you're right. You were going to point out na yung mga tatay nila are allegedly
rumored
in the
to be
race.
Rivals in the race for the
Correct.
speakership on the 20th of July.
Correct.
Of course, a lot of things happen naman even before the 28th. Usually in 28th, ano lang yun. That's just formalizing na lang whatever deals were made before.
Whatever deals were worked out. So there's
whatever
a lot
horse
of
trading was already done.
correct. So there's a lot of negotiations behind the scenes right now. We know, but so far we're hearing that there's still support for House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Pero yun nga, however way it pans out, it's just interesting to see the two younger gentlemen, the Romualdez and Benitez, walking together.
Walking side by side. Well, that's the better way of doing it naman eh. You walk side by side kasi if somebody walks behind you, lilingon ka na lilingon.
Sige na nga.
Di ba? Mas nakakatakot yun. Sabay-sabay kayo.
Kasi the implication is they're friends, right? They're looking
malicious.
ikaw talaga malicious.
Malicious.
But the insinuation is that they're friends, right? They're happy to, walk in together as the media takes photos, takes videos of the two of them. Anyways, we don't know.
Something you also consciously do when there's a whole bunch of
when there's cameras in front.
shooting.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what are we talking about today?
Oh, finally, we had an interview this morning with the Justice Secretary. Medyo abbreviated masyado. Medyo maiksi.
Okay, Justice Sec Boying.
Boying.
Who granted One Balita Pilipinas with Cheryl Cosim an interview. Of course, we've been trying him for a number of weeks now.
For a few millennia.
So, sabi niya, amongst other things, that there are at least 15 police that are under restrictive custody right now in relation to their investigation over this missing Sabongeros case. Restrictive custody sa Camp Crame, if I recall correctly.
Ano pa? Tapos siyempre nakasabay pa tong Taal Volcano. Habang nagbabalak sumisid ang mga autoridad sa
Bigla
Taal
may
Lake.
Freya to magmatic eruption. So honestly,
I'm not implying anything.
What are you? I was gonna say, what are you imputing here? May kinalaman ng
It's just,
Feebox.
ang explanation ng Feebox basically is mukhang may blockage doon sa usual points of emission ng Taal. Normally kasi you'd have a regular range of volume of sulfur emissions from the fissures doon sa crater area. Pag nababara yan, bumabagsak tuloy yung sulfur emissions. And that's of course noticed by the sensors there. The thing is, pag bumara yan, as what appears to have happened, then the pressure starts building up. And it's like a pressure cooker. Once the pressure
scary.
gets to a point where it's greater than the blockage, then it just pops the lid
Erupts.
open.
Yeah. So, and we don't know when that might be.
Yeah.
It's hard to predict, even
Yeah.
with the seismology equipment.
Oh yeah. Although what they're saying lang is it's likely to be a phreatomagmatic eruption, which means basically na it's more of an eruption caused by steam. More than it is an explosive eruption which would involve a lot of debris like pyroclastic flows. Hindi naman ganun.
Sorry, I need to correct myself. Si General Nick Torre III pala yung nagsabi that they are keeping 15 cops under restrictive custody. Siya pala yung nagsabi nun. What Justice Sec Boying said was they have a list of about 20 alpha members from this so-called alpha members ng mga sabongero that they're investigating apart from atong ang
Supposedly the
Gretchen
core group, I
Barreto.
suppose.
Oo, I guess this is the inner circle, no? He said they have a list of about 20 names apart from atong ang Gretchen Barreto that they're doing case build-up around. And it sounds like he's fairly confident that they have enough evidence on hand. Which sinabi na niya to before, pero inulit niya today in the interview with Gretchen, with Cheryl, that meron silang hawak na mga written statements, meron silang videos, meron silang other evidences. So, it'll be interesting to see once they're ready to reveal that, ano nga yun. Kasi we were saying last Friday na walang eyewitness testimony that we know of at this point in time, right?
But you still have to, well, okay, let me qualify that. It helps when you have a body to prove murder. It helps, but it's not always required. Kasi for example, the Maguindanao massacre case nga, the 50th victim was never found, so the family of Rinaldo Momay was never included in the conviction of Andalampatuan. So there were only 57 counts of murder against Ampatuan and company. That's one case. On the other hand, there have been other cases as well, two that I can think of, where a court had convicted somebody even without a body, convicted of murder. Yung case ni Marijoy Chong and the sister, they
The
disappeared.
kidnap?
They disappeared in 1995, I think, or thereabouts. Ang nakulong dito, tsaka na-convict for murder, a group of 8 teenagers then, including Paco Larrañaga, half Filipino, half Spanish citizen. They were convicted. Actually, they were sentenced to death, except that this is 2004. By 2006 kasi
Natanggal yung death penalty.
na-revoke ang death penalty. So, naging life sentence na lang sila. And then, Larrañaga was eventually transferred to a Spanish jail because he's a half Spanish citizen. So, yun.
So it is possible, pero it's harder.
It's
just
harder because the first thing you have to prove is that
Oh.
there was a murder or there was a death.
Yes, correct.
There was a wrongful death to begin with. Although yun nga, that particular case of the Chong sisters was also being contested heavily by a lot of people kasi to begin with, there's a lot of he said, she said on where the suspect was on the night that the sisters disappeared. He was seen supposedly in their receipts in Quezon City, not in Cebu. So may back and forth na ganun. But anyway, the court convicted him and the Supreme Court upheld it. So yun, that's one case. A more recent case was in 2023 or 2024. A mayor of Bohol disappeared. Lady mayor of Bohol disappeared. The husband was convicted. The body was never found.
Ano yung, what were the evidence?
But the
that
husband
swayed-
kasi eventually confessed and pled
okay,
guilty.
so you have a confession there.
He pled guilty.
Okay.
That
Safe to say, in this case, we're
For
not
the second
going to get a
one,
confession because they're outright denying it, right?
But you never know. Kasi the confession of the husband came later on.
But then again, even confessions obviously can be,
Can be forced,
manipulated,
Oh,
can be
and
forced,
forced,
right?
yeah.
So hindi
Can be
naman
under
siya,
duress.
that's not rock solid proof. So, but yun nga, it'll be interesting to see anong evidence the DOJ actually has on hand with this case. And what's complicating it is yun nga, it's very hard. They're trying to go to Taal to dive
To look for
and look for these alleged bodies. Pero how could you, right? Now,
such a huge area and so murky.
So murky, such a huge area, acidic. Sinabi na ni Sec Boying that they're trying to borrow equipment from Japan.
Where do you
to
start looking?
Exactly. Alias Totoy didn't see the bodies being dumped, so he can't even narrow it down for them, right? So
And you know,
parang
when a place is deep, where you throw something is not necessarily where it lands. Like the
could have
Titanic.
floated away.
The Titanic, they know where it sank. They found several miles away.
And
Of course, it
then
was
he was
deeper.
saying as well the buoyancy, because it's freshwater, the buoyancy
It's different.
is different. So how does that affect then if the bodies are indeed there, where the bodies may end up, right? So mahirap, it's going to be a very complicated case. But in any case, sabi ni Justice Sec Remulla that they are soliciting help from Japan.
Although Secretary Solidum, I saw a news story kanina. Secretary Solidum, DOST, was saying na they are likely to find the bones pa rin.
Possible pa rin.
Although not sure I agree with what he was saying that the bones don't decompose, because they do decompose. It's just that they decompose at a much slower rate than the tissues.
We don't know at this point when these bodies would have been allegedly dumped. Remember, this case spans
2 years
dates back
thereabouts.
to 2021.
Yeah.
Right?
2 or 3 years.
So 4 years na. But the authorities started earnestly investigating this mga 2 or 3 months ago, if I recall correctly. So, yeah, 4 years na tong case. We don't know what they might come up with. Okay, so moving on to another story now. We've got our first guest for the day. We've got Democracy Watch Philippines, which is urging the Judicial Bar of the Philippines to ensure a transparent process in the selection of the next ombudsman. Let's bring in Democracy Watch Philippines convener Lloyd Zaragoza. He's also part of the Strat-based group. Hi, Lloyd. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having.
Remember, walang
Lloyd, I think there's somebody. I think
may
you're
echo.
medyo malakas yung background noise.
Ayun.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us, Lloyd? There's somebody talking in the background.
There's the party line.
Is that coming from your end, Lloyd?
No.
Yeah, there.
Okay.
There.
alone.
That's much
Okay.
better. Thank you so much. Okay, so Democracy Watch Philippines has issued a statement calling for a transparent and fair selection process for the next ombudsman. Talk us through that. What do you guys want to happen here?
Yes, basically, we feel that the appointment of the next ombudsman, considering that he or she will be serving the next 7 years, way beyond the term of the current administration, would have a elastic implication on public accountability. So we feel that such appointment should be the candidate or the appointee must be entrusted to someone who has a proven track record of independence, integrity, and of course, a unwavering commitment to fighting corruption.
When you say proven track record of independence, I'll get straight to the point. Do you mean it should not be Justice Secretary Boying Remulla? Because of course, he is politically affiliated and he is the incumbent, right? I mean, as in the DOJ.
Well, among others, I think you can always show rin naman your independence. It's not just because you're part of the administration doesn't mean you're no longer independent to the appointing power. No? Ang importante, way beyond these technical qualifications, the ombudsman must always be seen as a bulwark of integrity and answerable only to the Constitution and to the Filipino people. So I think once for that matter, if Justice Remulla would be chosen as the ombudsman, once he takes his oath as the ombudsman, I think he should see to it that he would be compliant and he should be following the Constitution, which is to be an independent ombudsman.
Pero kasi, Reg, conversely kasi, you're looking at one of the applicants, Melvin Matibag, the Secretary General ng PDP Laban. So, conversely nga, on one hand, you might have somebody from the administration, Remulla, and even Felix Reyes, PCSO. On the other hand, you have somebody who might also represent the opposition or the Duterte side, which would be Melvin Matibag. Anyway,
Yes.
I was just...
Yun nga, I think whoever the ombudsman will be, I think the public deserves someone who will act without fear or favor and without these political pressures, so that whatever the decisions or whatever his actions in the future will not be affected or will not be clouded by any partisan or political interest.
Pero Sir Lord, I think everybody will agree with everything you said, including the camp of Remulla and including the camp of Matibag. I mean, di ba? Those are things that nobody will dispute. But if you go down to the weeds, exactly how do you propose that this be operationalized or this be implemented? I mean, would you have any specific proposals as to paano ba dapat piliin? Paano ba dapat natin masiguro na itong mga, kung sino man ma-appoint na ombudsman, hindi nakaangkla sa kung sino-sinong politiko o sino-sinong may interes?
Well, it's good to see and check their track record, no? It's also good that if the Judicial and Bar Council will be able to, of course, I know for a fact that they do televise their selection process also. So maybe some other groups would be able to weigh in and listen and participate in all of these selection hearings. That would be one step towards having a independent ombudsman.
Sir Lloyd, let's bring in lang si Amy Pamintuan. I think Amy's already online. I heard her voice a while ago. Amy Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Amy, can you hear us?
Maybe not yet.
Ay, okay. I thought I heard her voice.
In any case, what we know at this point is there are 17 candidates who have already put their names down.
Okay na.
Ayan, okay na siya. Ami, pasok ka na, Ami.
Okay.
Sige.
Ayan.
Oh.
Saan na
Nasa office ako naka-zoom Hindi ito yung normal kong ano.
Okay, sige. Okay.
Change location.
Naiiba.
Ayan.
Ayan po si Amy Pamintuan ng Philippine Star, ang editor-in-chief ng Philippine Star. Ami, we have Sir Lloyd Zaragoza.
Convener ng Democracy Watch, and we're talking about the selection
Ombudsman
for the next ombudsman kasi Samuel Martires is stepping down July 28.
Yes. Meron ba kayong meron na kami listahan actually nung
17.
Kaya lang hindi pa
Oh.
Medyo diverse yung Nakita niyo ba yon yung listahan na yun?
Yes.
Kasi nagkakalat na rin naman sa social media.
Diverse.
May 17 names.
Yes.
And then from the incumbent, of course, pinaka representative of that is si Justice Secretary Boying nga. And
Yes.
on the other hand, on the one hand, si Democracy Watch is issued a statement calling for an impartial and independence, for the president to choose someone with a track record of independence and impartiality. Thus, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to hinihimay lang natin what that should look like.
Yes. Meron, hindi, yun ang nga tinatanong ko, meron na ba? Kasi have you seen the list, Have you seen the list? Kasi nagkakalat na rin naman sa social media.
Yes,
Baka
we do.
naman may napupusuan na kayo doon. O gusto nyo magpasok ng iba pang sana. Or you're hoping na may ipasok pang iba.
Well, the people who applied are all top caliber lawyers rin, no? And I think the important thing is they should be able to show that they have that unwavering commitment of fighting corruption. Dahil what do we have for an ombudsman for if hindi rin naman siya titindig at lalaban mismo sa pagsugpo ng corruption in government. I think that's one primary consideration. na dapat nating saalang-alang sa pagpili ng ating ombudsman.
Yung ombudsman position is for a period of 7 years and it crosses administrations, of course. But what does your group think, in your opinion, si Ombudsman Martires ba has done enough in his term?
Well, in fairness to the ombudsman, no, I think to the current ombudsman, he was able to implement in some reforms within the office. Although we would want someone who would also be who would open the gate, so to speak, for for more information, especially if of course we're talking here about the
SALN.
disclosure SALNs and those things, no, which have been barred by the present ombudsman at this point. So hopefully yun, there would be some improvement on that. Dahil karapatan rin naman natin na as a citizen na malaman ano yung mga diniklara ng mga bawat public officials natin sa kanilang salin, at upang sa ganun mas makita natin na mas mahikayat pa natin sila na mas maging transparent sa kanilang mga gawain.
Would you...
Actually, nakukulangan yung mga tao dun sa, especially dun sa action niya dun sa formally. Meron ba kayong any ideas on that case? Yung pag-handle daw ng ombudsman ng formally scandals, saka yung mga cases involving the Dutertes. Medyo nakikriticize siya. Ano yung tingin nyo sa ganong mga observasyon?
Well, I think we know for a fact that yun nga, medyo sinasabi ng ibang grupo, kulang. I think we need to develop it further, no? Kailangan siguro mas masusipan nating pag-aralan, mas masusipang imbestigahan rin ng ombudsman upang there would be no stones unturned, so to speak, at managot yung dapat managot. We do believe that this is they need to uncover that web of corruption na nangyari sa mga transaction na to, at they need to really pinpoint who really was the mastermind.
Sir, if I may, sir, kasi I'm looking at the list of the 17 who submitted their applications. At least 4 of them belong to the office of the president. So that's basically almost 25% almost. 1 out of every 4 applicants are affiliated with Malacanang or with the executive department. The rest, I suppose, are from the judiciary naman, so that's a good thing. But what does that tell you? I mean, is there any reason to be concerned about that, or you don't see any problem there?
Well, yung process naman, I think the Judicial and Bar Council will be able to screen all of them, and from a list that the Judicial and Bar Council will draw up, that's the only time that the President will pick or appoint his chosen ombudsman. So regardless if there are 17 names at this point, it will all boil down to the final cut-off or to the final list that will be given by the JBC to the President, of which doon pipili ang Presidente.
Well, sir, let me fine-tune that a bit. Is there anything in the process that you would like to change, amend, fine-tune, or revise as far as making sure that we get an ombudsman that we really deserve? Kasi,
And who will truly be independent,
and who will also be transparent.
because that is the key here.
Well, we think it's more of informing the citizenry of all of these applications. I understand this will be all public hearings, and at the same time free naman ang mga tao free naman yung mga tao to comment or to give their own positions or opposition to the application. So I think from there we can inform others to be an active observer in these cases. Kasi gano'n rin naman pinipili yung mga
Correct.
justices natin in the Supreme Court.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Democracy Watch Philippines convener Lloyd Zaragoza.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have to go on a quick break. You're watching Storycon on One News. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We've got developing news in the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Regina Lay, still with us. Amy Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
Hi. Okay na.
There you go. And also joining us this afternoon is our patching pa. We're getting in touch with her right now. But Ami, where
Yes.
exactly are you in the office? Is that your office or?
My office.
That's why.
Ayan. Kaya hindi pantay-pantay lighting. Nandito yung bintana sa ano ka.
Ano, okay lang. Okay naman eh.
Nandito sa one side.
Oh, it's just a different
Backdrop.
a different look.
Iba yung background. Naka-zoom tayo ngayon. Naka-zoom. Hindi siya yung regular camera.
Okay, our second guest is already here, Attorney Ava Marie Ramel, the legal officer of Makati City. Magandang hapon, Attorney, and welcome to Storycon.
Hello po, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, attorney.
Thank you for joining us, Mama. We're reading with quite a lot of fascination itong issue about yung arbitration and settlement dun sa Makati subway. We read, for example, that the incoming, the mayor, Nancy Binay, says na mga 8.9 billion ang kinumit ng previous administration ng Makati to paying PhilDev 7 days before yung assumption ng new term. So may back and forth pa eh. We're wondering, was there any deadline for that commitment to be made, yung 8.9 billion, or could it not have been passed on to the next administration to make a decision?
Well, based on the documents that we have, which we specifically the settlement agreement which we just received on June 30, 2025, the first day of Mayor Nancy Binay in office. So when we received this document, we made a few determinations that this is a legally flawed agreement.
A legally flawed agreement.
Because there is no existing appropriation. Plus, it is a grossly disadvantageous contract because it puts the city in a financial distress. No? So because there are no funds allocated for it, should we be made to pay this amount, the operations of the City Hall will be greatly disrupted. The project and even the benefits due to the residents of Makati will also be affected. So, when we learned of this settlement agreement,
Attorney Femi po, Attorney Femi, sorry, I should have briefed our viewers first about the issue kasi sumama ko bigla sa tanong eh. Just for the backgrounder, yung Makati subway po kasi na-cancel dahil naglipat ng ilang barangay including yung some of the substations sa Taguig City, yung mga embos. So na-cancel, nagkaroon ng arbitration between yung dapat ay developer at yung city government.
Yes.
At yan po ngayon ang pinag-aawayan kung anong settlement.
They went to SIAC, the Singapore International Arbitration Center, and until today nga the news broke na si new Mayor Nancy Binay is questioning the 8.9 billion peso settlement that Makati City agreed to pay the developer because hindi natuloy yung project.
Yun po. Sorry po, I just need to put that on the table kasi baka lost yung mga nanonood sa atin eh. Bigla akong nagtanong. Anyway, sige po.
But to can I just follow up on Ed's question? Was there a deadline as far as you know? Kasi baka naman kaya sinayin nung June 23, just 7 days before she stepped down, was because there was a deadline. Are you aware?
Yes. No, there was no deadline. There is a pending arbitration proceeding. The parties are in the process of filing their respective pleadings. And then, sometime in June, the parties informed the tribunal that there are ongoing negotiations. And it was at this time that we discovered that there is resolution already authorizing the previous administration to enter into a settlement agreement. So it was a move by the parties to enter into a settlement agreement to stop the or to settle the arbitration proceedings. There was no deadline to speak of, so it would have been possible for the previous administration to let the arbitration proceedings be handled by the next administration.
Okay,
There was no deadline to speak of.
Okay, so that's clear. There was no deadline to speak of. But can I just ask very quickly, who came up with the $160 million figure, as far as you know?
Well, we are not privy to the settlement agreement, so we cannot confirm how the $160 million US dollars or 8.9 billion pesos was arrived at actually. So, but what we know is that there is no existing appropriation for this settlement agreement.
Pero attorney, I understand kasi nag-issue din ng statement yung office ni former Mayor Abby Bina, yan, no, na sinasabi niya with the settlement, pwede na mag-take over daw ang Makati over the subway project and eventually itutuloy na that dahil nag-pull out nga yung contractor and Makati can pick its own contractor, pwede nang tuloy-tuloy at hindi mapupunta sa tagig yung, well, that's my understanding nung story na lumabas. Tama ba yung ganong interpretation ng settlement?
Well, one of the terms of the settlement agreement po is that should we pay that amount, the 8.9 billion pesos, Infradev will transfer the shares into the transfer the shares in MTSI in favor of the Makati City Government.
Yes.
So that's one of the terms. But determining whether or not it will be a beneficial transaction for the city government of Makati is a different matter altogether, and that our initial assessment is that this is a legally flawed agreement. So
anong remedy yung pinopropose niyo, attorney?
Wala po
In lieu of,
Sorry?
kung ganito na there's a new city government, there's a new mayor, and anyway, in charge of the city government, ano yung proposal niya kung sakasakali? Kasi mukhang nagkapirmahan na eh.
Opo. Well, at the moment, before the arbitral tribunal acts on this, wala pa naman po kasing consent award. So, we are requesting the arbitral tribunal to give the new administration, the city government of Makati, time within which to study the files, to study the legality and the authority utilized to enter into that settlement agreement. So that is the stage where we are at.
Do you think there was in any way undue haste, or do you think there was some sort of irregularity in the way that the agreement was signed, considering it was 7 days before the next administration took over?
Well, the timing is actually highly suspicious because the city council authorized the entry into that transaction in June 20, and then the settlement agreement was signed on June 23. So just 7 days before their term ends, no? And what happens is that the new administration has a burden to settle this amount should this be implemented. So the timing is really suspicious. In addition to the fact that there is no existing appropriation for this transaction, despite a specific provision in the settlement agreement where they stated that the Makati City Government has already made appropriate budgetary allocations for this. So this is contrary to what we to the facts right now, because based on a certification issued by the Budget Department, there is no existing appropriations for the settlement.
Attorney, but is it also not true that, I mean, of course, there's no existing appropriation for this because this was an unforeseen event. And actually, in the response that former Mayor Abby issued today, she says she left Makati with 30 billion pesos in cash, consistent revenue increases, and 8 straight unmodified COA opinions. And she says the city can well afford to pay this without disrupting the services and projects.
Well, the truth, the fact still remains that they made a warranty in the settlement agreement to the effect that the appropriate budgetary allocations have been made. And as of now, we have a certification from the budget department that there is no allocation or budget appropriation for this transaction. So that's what we have right now. And regardless if there are other funds, there are steps that need to be taken. And,
Attorney, itong mga sinasabi ninyo, no, yung mga options ba that you are considering, are you considering criminal indictments kung sakasakali for maybe abuse of authority or graft, or meron ba kayong ganong kinoconsider against the previous city government?
Well, Mayor Nancy wants that all legal remedies will be explored. So if there are persons responsible who need to be made accountable, then we will see to it that they are made accountable. So we are still in the process of collating all these documents and studying the current status of this transaction, and that we will make the appropriate action as may be necessary to address it. So the current administration wants to ensure that the interests of the Makati residents are protected.
But also, we understand na there are personal issues involved, no? Kasi magkapatid yun hindi rin, but of course, we have to ask the question, hindi ba nag-uusap, wala bang balak mag-usap yung magkapatid and to talk it out, ano nangyari, ate, ano, ganon? Any exploratory talks at all between the former and current city governments, the two mayors at least?
Well, I cannot answer that po. So unfortunately, I'm not in a position to answer that. So, but as of now, the law department is handling the arbitration proceedings, and that's where we are directing the available remedies at the moment. And we hope to file our definitive position before the arbitral tribunal within the week.
Yeah.
So,
the other thing that former Mayor Abby was saying was that actually, if you drag out this arbitration, it's going to cost the LGU more. She says that initially, InfraDev filed claims of $1.7 billion. Again, let me repeat, $1.7 billion in claims when it initiated arbitration in April of 2025. Given this is a multi-billion-dollar project that did not push through, of course, it has a lot of costs that they had to shoulder, right? So when they went to arbitration, they initially filed for $1.7 billion, and now it's been taken down to $160 million. And former Mayor Abby's point was that if you had dragged out this arbitration, it would have cost the city much more. What is the incumbent's response to that?
Well, we don't know what the result of the arbitration proceedings will be had the settlement agreement not been entered into by the parties. So we can't really fully assess how this would turn out if we didn't enter into this transaction and we weren't obligated to pay 8.9 billion pesos. So we're still studying really the files, and as of now, we think that the settlement agreement is flawed and grossly disadvantageous to the Makati.
I get what you're saying, attorney. That's my point as well. You're already alleging a gross mismanagement at this point in time and irregularities, but there seems to be a lot of details that we still don't know at this point, right? So you also can't confirm your $1.7 billion figure in initial claims that InfraDev had filed, whether that's true or not, and also whether there's been the fact that former Mayor Abby says there has been allocation for this. So I guess the bigger question being, how sure are you that there has been irregularities in this case and that the city cannot afford this?
Well, first and foremost, when we studied the settlement agreement, there was already a warranty that the Makati government has made appropriate budgetary allocation. So that's the first thing that we had to determine whether or not there was an appropriation for this, and there was none. So the other terms of the settlement agreement, we have yet to make a final position on. We are making the necessary pleading, which we will file to the arbitral tribunal, and will furnish you and the rest of Makati of a copy of that. We will ensure that we will be transparent, and we will inform you when we have that final position already filed with the arbitral tribunal. But we cannot comment as of the moment whether or not it would be beneficial for us to enter into the settlement agreement, because the claims of InfraDev, the 1.7 billion initial claims in the arbitration proceedings are just their claims. They have not proven it, and we have not defended our position at the moment. So,
Pero attorney, you said at the start that your office found it to be grossly disadvantageous.
Kaya nga eh.
Let me put it this way na po. As far as your office is concerned, do you see any liabilities, legal liabilities, whether administrative or criminal, on the part of the former mayor, si Abby Binay, with regard to this contract, which you have said to be grossly disadvantageous and legally flawed to begin with?
right now, we are still in the process of studying the facts. So we will conduct an investigation, and in due course, we will be able to determine what our next actions would be. But at the moment, we are before the arbitral tribunal, and we are set to file our petition on the settlement agreement. With respect to the determination that this is grossly disadvantageous, we took a look at the budget for social services, and that it's less than 8.9 billion. So we're just saying that if we utilize this amount just to pay for the settlement agreement, then those social services for which budget has been appropriated will be affected.
Would be defunded.
Yes. So that's why we say that it's a grossly disadvantageous agreement.
Attorney, pahabol na lang. Can we say na go pa rin yung subway project? Is the new Makati City government still interested in pursuing the subway project? Kasi sa ngayon, tingin namin it's in limbo eh.
Well, hindi pa po namin naaral ng maigi for us to be able to say already kung itutuloy ba natin o hindi. So wala pa po kami doon. Binubuo pa po namin yung records namin, and as we've mentioned, this this issue, this settlement agreement, came as a surprise to us. So, hindi po agad-agad makaka-decide yung current administration on how to address the project at the moment. But we will, at the proper time, address this issue.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now and circle back to you at a later time once you have more updates. Thank you so much for joining Storycon today, Attorney Ava Marie Ramel, City Legal Officer of Makati.
Maraming salamat po,
Thank
Attorney.
you, Attorney.
Thank you so much, Sir Ed, Ms. Stephen, Ms. Regina.
Thank you so much for joining Storycon today. Amy Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. Biglang sumigway sa ending kasi sinasabihan na ako, wrap up. Join us again tomorrow 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lake.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are one news, all sides, all the time.